All right. It seems like we have most people here, so we can just get started. Michael, you can go ahead and
Hey,
present.
so hello everyone. So welcome to the Successful Sophomore Skills Workshop. So we'll be discussing a little bit how you can maximize your second year and beyond at UCR. So I'm Michael. I'm a third year biochemistry major. I'm one of the CNAT Scholars peer mentors.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sophia. I'm also a CNAS Scholars Peer Mentor, and I'm currently a fourth year biology major.
Yeah.
All right, so here's our agenda for today. We're all here for one thing, and it's to see how, you can get the most out of your time here at UCR from your second year and beyond. So we'll first be going through academics, followed by involvement through research, clubs, and employment, then housing opportunities, and lastly, we'll cover financial literacy and budgeting.
So let's kind of start off with a question. So you all are almost done with your first year in the learning community at UCR. So what are three things you want to accomplish during your second year at UCR? So feel free to unmute yourself, put it in the chat. Anyone? Okay, someone said more involvement. Yeah, so more, staying involved in campus life, right? Staying engaged with UCR's campus. That's definitely one thing that, a lot of us want to do. Anyone else? Yeah, so some things maybe, okay, great. So someone said participate in research. Yeah, so research is a big one. More involvement, 4.0 GPA. Yeah, so you always want to strive to do your best in classes, right? Like I mentioned earlier, stay involved with campus life, clubs, extracurriculars, and everything like that. Participate in research, right? There's a lot of great research programs out there, and it's really easy to get involved with professors in their research overall. Yeah, another thing I would also add on is staying organized throughout your second year. Just knowing kind of, I guess, the transition from going to the learning community and kind of building your own schedule. We'll be discussing that a little bit later, but organization, I would say, is a big thing as well.
All right, so after a whole year of being online, I congratulate you all for doing so. I mean, I know it could be a little bit difficult for some people to get used to, especially after learning in person your whole life. But besides that, as we know, UCR might be coming back to campus next year. And so a few tips that we thought we would throw out there is, how to navigate your way throughout campus. And so a few things to know or to take note of is to budget some time to get in between classes and around campus. UCR is one of the smaller UC campuses, so definitely don't be scared of going from point A to point B. It probably takes 10 minutes or less. So it's also smart to have a screenshot of the campus map on your phone. There's also a UCR app where you can access that as well. I believe it also gives you directions from building to building, which is super helpful. I know I used that a lot my first year. Next is to arrive to campus early for parking. I've definitely had my own experiences, booking it to campus with 10 minutes to spare and being late to class because I forgot to budget time for parking. So make sure that you definitely account for that, especially, even if you're taking the bus, just like, everything else. And lastly is to plan some downtime between classes. So, you might have 30 minutes to hour gaps in between. Just make sure that you can try to be productive. You can get some assignments done, maybe answer some emails or maybe get a quick lunch. You should always remember to eat in between class just because, you may think you're too busy to. It's always important to nourish yourself that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so some more tips on returning back to campus. So definitely, as well as now, make sure you regularly attend your lectures, discussions, and labs. So making sure to attend all those will allow you to be as successful as possible going into next year. Definitely, with some more difficult classes from your first year, will definitely this attendance will allow you to do a lot better. And you also want to actively engage with the material and professors. So when you are in these lectures, discussions, and labs, it's also important not just to just show up, but you also want to make sure that you're paying attention, you're potentially taking notes, you're doing the things that kind of work for you in your first year to stay actively engaged. That's really important, especially with in-person instruction and with such a large lecture hall. And you also want to get familiar with all the on-campus resources and departments. So as if, for a lot of you having a peer mentor in your first year, that was something that, might will help you down the line with knowing on-campus resources and some basic ways of just getting around campus. So I would suggest if going back to campus, kind of get familiar with the map on the last slide and just know where everything is. And that way nothing, everything will go well in the end.
All right, so we will begin with our academic segment. Of course, we're all here at UCR as students first, so this will be our main priority. I know you're all used to being in a learning community, like Michael said, and that comes with a lot of guidance from, your learning community peers, the coordinators, and maybe even the supplemental instructors. However, going into your second year, you'll kind of be a little bit on your own now. So you'll have to learn how to create your own schedules, whether it's just, for registration or being accountable with, just like the rest of your life as you try to be a well-rounded student. Learn to use on-campus resources such as tutoring at the Academic Resource Center or open supplemental instruction, and really learning to, take the initiative to go to those if you feel like you need it. Next is to manage multiple science courses at once. I know some of you have heard triple threading, and that's taking three major courses at once. So typically that's organic chemistry, physics, and biology, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, so here's kind of some links you should pay attention to for advisors and scheduling. So this first link for cnsscholars.ucr.edu, it kind of gives you a brief overview of different breadth courses you can be taking. And below is also some links to your CNS advisor, just knowing who your CNS advisor is, and as well how to make appointments at myadvising.ucr.edu. So here's some images. Here we can see some degree options, like I mentioned earlier, with breadth courses are kind of listed here. So definitely take a look at that. If you're a biology major, this is great to look at right here. But it does, for every major, has these kind of degree options as well. Next, so below, kind of to the left, it's a good general overview of what your degree kind of looks like from a large sense of where your units are kind of being allocated. And here, so this is really important. You might have seen this maybe in your NAC 93 courses, where you kind of built your own schedule over time for your first year, going to your second, third, and fourth year. So whether it just be for the academic school year or you're also including that in summer, this is a great way of staying organized and knowing that you're staying on track and making sure you're graduating on time. And then right here below, this is a good checklist of how you can kind of cross off the courses that you've been taking and future classes that you may want to take in the future. You might have a little bit more flexibility with that in your upper division classes, so definitely look into all these different documents. Definitely talk to your CNS advisors to make a really good plan for the future.
All right, so many of us are familiar with electives, otherwise known as breadth courses. So even though these may not be major related at all, it's still a very important part of your college curriculum. They're not just filler courses. You should definitely pick electives that are of your own interests, you should definitely use this as a way to explore even more if you're still curious. Um, Another one is to supplement your education meaningfully. Um, Oh, this one is really important to me, is to help spread out your science and math workload effectively. So as you go on through, registration and whatnot, if you should utilize your breadth courses in a way so you're able to reach the minimum amount of units, which is 12 units a quarter. And instead of taking 3 science courses at once, you can take 2 and add, dance 5 or something like that instead of or also if you wanted to take on 3 major classes and you want to get ahead on units, then you can add another breadth course. It's really a variation of combinations that you can make. And lastly, instead of maybe taking random electives, you found something that you're really, really interested in, we suggest you look into taking a minor, and that should take about 30 units. But you should get in touch with your academic advisor if it is something that you wanted to look into, just to make sure. Um, and just to throw it out there, for example, I took microeconomics in high school and I remembered that I liked it so much. So I made sure to take it when I got to college, and it just made learning so much more easier and more enjoyable for myself. And I know that can go for a lot of people who end up taking classes of their own interests. Yeah.
Yeah, so mentioning kind of about electives, so definitely try to find those electives that you're kind of passionate about, because it really is open-ended when it comes to taking like social sciences, ethnic studies, and all those kinds of courses. So now we're going to move into triple threat. So Sophia kind of mentioned this a little bit, exactly what triple threat is. So it's basically where you have 3 science or math courses taken in the same quarter. So overall, that refers to organic chemistry, biology, and physics. So for me, in my experience, I did triple threat my fall quarter of second year. So definitely, that's something we'll be discussing a little bit later on. But yeah, so overall, organic chemistry, the Chem 8 series, and then bios, the Bio 5 series, and then for physics, that can be physics 2 for life science majors, and then physics 40 usually for engineering majors.
All right. So, has anyone gone to the Academic Resource Center outside of their supplemental instruction classes, out of what's already been put into their learning community schedules? You can just put a thumbs up or put it in the chat, unmute yourself. No. Okay. We got a couple no's here. That's totally fine. Okay, we have someone that went to the ARC a few times. Okay. All right, well, we just wanted to bring it up that, of course, UCR offers an array of resources that you can use to supplement your learning. You don't necessarily have to be struggling at all in a course to make an appointment with a tutor or even to show up to an open SI session. Again, I think for me, like the key word really is to supplement your learning. You pay tuition at UCR, you might as well get your money's worth by learning beyond the classroom. So again, just to reiterate, some resources is at the ARC, there's tutoring, open SI sessions, and then the R Success Workshop series. And then some places to study are the campus libraries like Orbach and Rivera, the computer labs, study lounges, and then Costo Hall. And then the classrooms, you can also go to office hours with a professor or a TA to ask questions about the material. You can also go there with your friends, if you are a little bit nervous to go alone. But yeah, there are more tips at this link down here if y'all wanted to take note of that as well.
Yeah, so we'll be moving into some advice. So like I mentioned earlier with triple threat, so how our peer mentors manage the triple threat. So I mentioned earlier, I took Bio 5C, Chem 8A, and Physics 2A my fall quarter of second year. And the main thing that I kind of found challenging, or just something that I had to overcome during that time, was just keeping a strict schedule. So when you are taking these courses, whether it be like I mentioned, these three science courses, they could also be math as well. But there's also some labs attached to them, right? Labs, lecture, and discussion. So when you are registering for these classes, make sure that you do have enough time to actually, like, I guess, spend time studying, making sure you do take breaks, you do like other things like extracurriculars, and you're keeping a strict sleep schedule. So for me, at least, I had 8 a.m.s every single day during my 10 weeks and during fall quarter. So it was really important for me to keep a strict sleep schedule, making sure I organize my time well using like a calendar system or planner you might have used during your first year. So that's definitely important going to triple threat, because the organic chemistry lab is a 4-hour lab, right? That's something you might have never seen before, especially this year, knowing like everything was online. Bio lab is 3 hours, physics lab was also 3 hours. So spending all those times in labs can definitely be tiring and fatiguing. So making sure you do spread out your times well, and you don't you're able to balance everything properly is definitely something important. Sophia, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, aside from what Michael had already mentioned, I definitely struggled with that as well, with time management. But I think another big thing for me was it's really easy to hear from other people how difficult it is to keep up with triple threading and how difficult other professors might be, or even just the class itself. But I think the main thing is just to be able to believe in yourself that you're able to get through these classes. I mean, there's examples of Michael and I, we've gone through these classes already, and, we've been successful, and we're able to learn what we needed to learn and get to our upper divs and utilize the things that we had learned previously. But, don't let anyone talk you into, just stressing yourself out because a professor might be too hard. It's really all about the mindset that you have going into these classes. I like to tell myself that, I'm going to pass, I'm going to do well. No matter what anyone else says. So just make sure to keep your head up and to believe in yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely some great advice there. Okay, so we'll be moving on to campus involvement, clubs, research, and career paths. So definitely as a sophomore, you want to make sure you're able to balance everything properly when it comes to off and on campus. So whether maybe you have work outside of campus, or you work on campus, or you live off campus, or you live on campus, you want to make sure you're able to spend that time properly. And like we mentioned earlier with transportation, making sure you have enough buffer time to actually get through everything. So yeah, Sophia can add on to what I just said.
Yeah, so, like Michael had mentioned, just learning how to balance everything, and as it comes with being a well-rounded student is really important. And also by just narrowing down your interests by getting involved, you can find a lot of these different clubs and organizations on Highlander link, as I assume a lot of you are already familiar with after searching through so many as you anticipate to return back to campus. Also, definitely think long term. From my own experience, a lot of employers and admissions people like to see consistency instead of just jumping around from club to club. So if you do find like a little sweet spot, let's say like the environmental club, definitely try to move on from like a general member position to an officer position and whatnot, and try to spread out from there. And lastly is to consider a career plan, as well as parallel plans. So does anyone have any idea of what a parallel plan is? Has anyone heard of what a parallel plan is? All right, well, so a parallel plan is just having a couple options open. It doesn't necessarily have to be plan B. It's just an alternative way to get you to the same goal with maybe a similar route, but we'll get into that in the next few slides. I believe Michael will cover it.
Yeah, so another important thing when you're trying to get involved with campus and staying engaged, you want to make those times memorable, right? We're only here at UCR for, at most like 4 to 5 years as an undergrad. So what you're choosing to get involved with is definitely something important. So make sure you do your homework. You do look at different UCR websites like Highlander Link, even here below, Student Life, and just getting to know what different clubs there are and different things to get involved with, and see what kind of, I guess, matches your interests, whatever you aspire to do outside of UCR. Just considering things that maybe you've never done before, just looking at everything you can, and your needs is something that will allow you to really find something you're passionate about. So maybe do you want a part-time job? Does your future career require certain skills? Do you want to network, right, in these different clubs or organizations, right? Those are some things you do want to consider. So moving forward with Highlander Link, Student Life, there's also Handshake as well. So Handshake is a great way to kind of look at part-time jobs, different skills you can build on for your future career, and networking as well. So networking, is LinkedIn, like LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys have heard of LinkedIn. It's a great way to network with individuals in a professional sense, and kind of being able to access your goals and career interests are definitely these are some ways you can kind of look at all those things.
All right, so I do have another question for you all, so definitely feel free to put in the chat or unmute yourself. So has anyone's career goals changed since coming to UCR? Or is anyone looking at other possible career choices? Or maybe are you even considering a major change because of a career change? Maybe we can just hear from one person. Okay, I think someone said something in the chat. Okay. Someone said that theirs have stayed the same since high school, and that's okay. Honestly, a lot of people tend to stick with the major that they end up picking once they come to college, but believe it or not, about 80% of college students in general change their major at least once before they graduate. So you don't always have to change majors too, since many majors can be applied to a certain career. But yeah, it's great that, that you've decided to still stick with your major. And those are very normal thoughts to have, even if you are thinking about other career paths, or other majors as well. But you can also always refer to the Career Center at UCR. So they do offer a lot of different services, such as the career assessment. You're able to update your resume there. I've utilized that service. I brought my resume there about 2 times, and I've had someone look over it and edit it with me. Also, you're able to explore other majors and career choices by going to, let's say, they have Career Day coming up for certain majors, whether that's like for CNAS or for CHAS. They also have the Graduate and Professional School Information Day. You're able to apply for internships, like Michael had mentioned. Handshake's a really big one within the Career Center. And another big one to throw out there is just to maybe consider studying abroad. If some of you were interested, you're still able to have the same opportunities, whether that's, again, learning abroad, having a job out there, doing research, or having an internship.
Yeah, so like Sophia mentioned earlier with parallel plans. So exactly what is a parallel plan? It's basically a path where it's an alternative plan similar to your original plan. So you want to think about this plan kind of being equal, not like a lesser version of what you originally want to do or pursue later on, after UC Riverside. So definitely consider a parallel plan as your equal and something, to consider as well. If you're not sure about a parallel plan, definitely take a career assessment quiz. So that's something that they also Handshake also has as well. You can take a career assessment quiz, kind of figure out maybe what you're interested in if you're not sure, as well as maybe planning an alternative plan like a parallel plan on Handshake would definitely allow you some flexibility going forward in your undergrad.
All right, so I know many of you are looking for research opportunities, and gladly UCR has many. So as an undergrad, you're able to get into undergrad research as a way to pay for college, as well as getting a regular job, which I thought was pretty important to throw out there as well. So here are a few opportunities. On campus, there's the Chancellor's Research Fellowship. There's the RISE program, which I know many of you have seen in your emails about, which is Research in Science and Engineering. There's Mentoring Summer Research Internship Program. And lastly, there's the Maximizing Access to Research Careers, also known as MARC-U. And then a couple opportunities off campus. Going back to study abroad is the Faculty-Led Education Abroad program, otherwise known as FLEAP. But you should always keep your eyes peeled in your emails, just because a lot of CNAS newsletters and even UCR newsletters in general will be advertising certain research opportunities. And again, research programs do pay students. For example, like the RISE program, they pay a $5,000 stipend at the end of the 10-week research opportunity. Other ways to get involved in research, you can also volunteer, and you can also take them to count towards your units or your credits, but you should talk to your academic advisor first.
Yeah, and another thing with these research opportunities, you can also find these on the CNAS Scholars website as well. There's a list of different opportunities you can look into that include RISE, MARC-U Star. I also believe there's also the Dynamic Genome research program as well, and maybe a few others. So definitely look into that when you're considering research programs. So now we'll move on to some more advice. So what are our peer mentors involved in, and how did they choose what to get involved with? So for me, initially in my first year, I kind of just, kind of explored to see what different clubs and opportunities there were in my first year, attending not career fair, the club fairs every Wednesday, and just going around and seeing what's available near the bell tower was definitely something I took advantage of to see what sparked my interest and overall what I wanted to get involved in. So ultimately I decided to mainly just get involved with like chemistry club and Red Cross. And those clubs have kind of allowed me to kind of see the different sides of, health careers, different opportunities in chemistry, and also as well as kind of figure out that I'm leaning more towards like pharmacy school, and just being able to join a club like Future Pills and just learning more about the pharmaceutical sides of things was definitely something that allowed me to find exactly what I want to do in the future. So the main ways I would kind of look at what to get involved in is just definitely attend career fairs if we are on campus next year. They usually have those every Wednesday. So those club fairs, and also Highlander Link is a great option as well. Handshake has some great career fairs. You can also get in touch with the Career Center through Handshake as well. So those are some ways you can find what you want to get involved in. And how about you, Sophia?
Okay, so for me, I know Michael's is a lot more career-based. Um, I guess in general, I'm a very like experimental person. I just like to see things I just like to try everything out. So my first year, I made sure to get involved in a cultural organization, just to branch out more and make new friends. And so that way I was able to find a lot of people in my major. And I've been friends with them and I've stuck with them taking the same classes all the way up into my fourth year, which, you know, could be a possibility for all of you. And as I went on throughout college, I'd say I'm pretty extroverted, so I joined the Associated Students Programs Board, otherwise known as ASPB. They throw on a lot of the concerts on campus. I also did a bunch of university ambassador positions with the Passion Planner and Yerba Mate. I've also worked at a UCR health clinic. Um, and I've also done research with a microbiologist at a clean water quality lab. So I've done an array of things, and it's helped me figure it out that when I first came into UCR as a microbiology major, research wasn't it just didn't sit right with me after a couple years. And so I realized, like, you know, I could go into the business side of biotech. And so that's where my career path is taking me right now. So after going through all of those very sociable, very like people oriented organizations and activities, it's helped me realize, like, you know, I just like to work with people and things of that sort. So hopefully that can inspire some of you and it serves some sort of uh, I guess like storyline, like not everyone is following the same path and you don't have to follow, you know, any of your peers as well. We're all going on our different chapters or different ways to get to where we need to be, where we want to be. All right, so now we will discuss financial literacy and housing. So now that we're all learning to become adults, we should learn to kind of take our finances more seriously now. So the cost of college will always be an issue, unfortunately. I understand that it's expensive and costly to most people, but it's on us as students to be able to make and to learn how to make more informed financial decisions. So in college, for my own experience as well, I've definitely maximized my time to use it to learn how to make or have better money saving habits. So when you are working full time in the future or you're paying back loans, you can do it in a more efficient way. So you're a little less lost, but we'll cover some tips and tricks in the following slides.
Yeah, so one big thing you want to consider is housing, right? So a lot of you might have housing on your mind going into your second year. This year being remote, maybe you didn't really have any sort of housing experience. So for second years, there are an array of different options you can look at on campus. So, right, so for second years, I believe they are allowing second years to live in the residence halls. So there will be a second year living learning community that you can get into. There's also campus apartments. So campus apartments like Glenmore, Falkirk, Stonehaven, kind of like on this chart, different campus apartments, and kind of seeing, you know, whether those options best work for you in terms of distance, you know, maybe if you want a place that's furnished or unfurnished, you know, how many roommates you would have, things like that. You will definitely want to consider campus apartments as a good option. There's also residential apartments and family housing. So one thing, you know, to consider with all these different options is definitely look into, you know, what best works for you in terms of, you know, if you want to live right on campus, you know, like North District or, you know, Penland Hills, Aberdeen and Venice, right? Those are some options if you just want to be directly on campus. If you want to be a little bit further, maybe look into like the Plaza, Bannockburn Village. Those are some great options as well. So yeah, it's a lot of just kind of exploring and looking maybe at the housing websites to see what best works for you in terms of on-campus options.
All right, so I know for me, throughout college, I had some trouble finding a sweet spot in budgeting. I know I tend to splurge a lot on money, or not money, on food and clothes. So does anyone have any common expenses that they have currently, or any expenses that you expect to have once you get back on campus? Anyone? I know for me, a big one is coffee, unfortunately. Um, let's see. All right, well, moving on. So we will go over a few ways to save a little bit more money, um, just using like the regular amenities at UCR. But a few tips are just cooking your own meals and finding, I guess, cheaper or free transportation to school. Um, but anyways, so here are some statistics on how much the average college student would spend on room and board. It's about um, $12,000, and on books and school supplies, it's around $1,500. Of course, this varies between your classes, and excuse me. What you might run across next is, I'm sorry. Next up is on transportation. Again, it varies from person to person if you'll have a car on campus or not, and you do have to take into account parking costs, getting a parking pass at your apartment or even at school. So as you can see here, for the res halls, it's $800, campus apartments, almost $2,000, and with your parents, $2,000, maybe because you'll be commuting more. Same thing with living off campus.
Yeah, so definitely when you are considering budgeting, you definitely want to consider some common things, when you are making a budget. So what are some common things that, um, you know, students definitely like coffee, right? So like Sophia mentioned, coffee is a big one, just to make sure you're awake and you're actually able to get to where you need to go, and making your own coffee. And we'll discuss a little bit more about some budgeting basics. So like on the slide, you want to make sure your budget reflects your main priorities. So whether it be, clothing, housing, just being able to get the right school supplies, those are some big priorities you want to consider. And you also want to kind of balance, what do you think is more important, right? When you are making a budget. So when you're not, some things, maybe some small infrequent lifestyle changes, such as, eating out, or just being able to buy things that, kind of splurge on yourself a little bit in terms of whatever you want to get, like boba, right? Maybe you want to get boba once in a while. Just making sure you stick with your budget and you're able to, stay on top of that is really important. And we'll mention kind of how to track your own results. Kind of, there's some different apps. You can make a spreadsheet, right? There are many different ways to track your results, and we'll definitely discuss which ways might work best for you.
All right, so here are some popular budgeting apps that we've accumulated from other UCR students. So Mint is a really big one, only because it links directly to your bank account, and so it's able to specifically track what you spend on, and how it accounts into your budgets and your savings. And there are other apps such as Toshi Finance. It has a very simple interface that you can pick up on, and it makes budgeting really easy. All you have to do is input your income and your expenses, and then you're able to add tags on them so you can see where your money goes. So let's say like groceries, you can tag that on a Trader Joe's transaction. And next up is left to spend. Again, it's really simple. All of these apps that we've added are easy to use. All you have to do is add a spending allowance, and then you just start subtracting from there. It's a little less complicated than Toshi Finance, which is good. It's really simple, or similar to envelope budgeting, if some of you are familiar with that. And again, it's really good for college students. So because you're not getting caught up in the details of budgeting, instead of analyzing graphs or a spreadsheet. And some other options are Wally, Level Money, Good Budget, Unsplurge, and Honey, which is a Chrome extension that you can add, and it'll automatically add in like coupons and whatnot into your online transactions.
So now we'll be kind of getting into some tips, right? You want to save money as a college student. College is expensive, and you want some tips to make sure that you stay on top of your budget and maybe even have some extra money left over for other things outside of school or even for school. So, like we mentioned earlier, coffee, right? So making your own coffee, making sure that if you can make your own coffee, it's definitely a lot cheaper than going to Starbucks. I know there's Starbucks at Glenmore Market, right? That's really good. But obviously, if you can make your own coffee at home, maybe with a coffee maker, that can allow you to spend some more money elsewhere. Meal prep. So I know there's a lot of good food options on campus. If we ever go back to campus, there's like Panda Express. There's Panda Express. There's also Habit, right? So those are some really good options just to eat out. But obviously, if you can make some meal prep, go to like a grocery store and you can actually cook yourself and make food and prepare before you get to campus. That's a great way of saving money as well. So budgeting apps, kind of like what Sophia mentioned, there's many different apps you can look at, and just finding whichever one best works for you will allow you to save and budget well. And another important thing, living with a roommate and or with families. So like I mentioned earlier with on-campus housing, there's also off-campus housing you can look into as well. And also commuting, right? So definitely look at all your different options and see which one best works for you. Definitely living with a roommate and not having, say, your own room you can save quite a bit with that. If you live with family, right, you don't really need to pay rent necessarily if you live with family. So, and just seeing, I guess, in terms of how much time you'd be spending going back and forth, in terms of transportation will definitely allow you to make that decision a lot easier for yourself. And biking or walking to school. So this is a great option, not just to save money, but it also allows you to feel really good about yourself, right? When you are biking or walking in the morning, it helps you wake up and rejuvenates yourself to get ready for those lectures, discussions, labs throughout the day. And I know that UCR now has created some protected bike lanes, so definitely look into biking. I know a lot of people usually like to have like skateboard. I know for certain motorized skateboards like a Bird, I'm not necessarily sure, they might not allow it in certain areas, so definitely pay attention to that. But definitely look at the different options besides driving. You can look into like biking or walking. And there's also the RTA bus. So the RTA bus is free for students. Now they usually use your R card to go into the RTA bus, but now everything is contactless. So you don't have to necessarily use your card. You can use your phone now. And it's really easy to get on and off the bus. And you can also carpool as well. So making sure you can save gas, carpool with a friend. That's a great way of saving money as well. And also there's great discounts, right? As a student, you want to make sure you take advantage of certain discounts. I know there's like an Amazon Prime discount. There's also like many different other discounts when you go to grocery stores sometimes. And just take advantage of all the different discounts you can. That will definitely allow you to budget and save money. And this is a big one. So buying used textbooks or renting when you can, right? So when you go to the bookstore, sometimes there's brand new textbooks, and maybe sometimes, those textbooks you don't necessarily want to buy because they may be a little expensive or out of your price range. So definitely buying some used textbooks. You can definitely look into that, like sometimes on Amazon. Sometimes you can look at renting the books from the bookstore as well. So you only need it for like a quarter. So that way you don't have to pay full price for that. You would just have to return the book afterwards. And another thing that I like to do personally, when I was on campus, whenever I went to like Rivera or Orbach Library, was definitely check out the book. if they have it on stock, just being able to check it out. And there's also scanners in the library where you can scan for certain pages if you need that when you're taking a class. So that way you don't necessarily have to buy or rent a book. You can just spend a little bit of time in the library and get what you need and kind of get out. Um, and another big thing, there's another big program called Loan to Learn where you can rent laptops in the library. So if you don't have a laptop or you didn't bring it for some reason, there's laptops there that you can just go and use if you need to do your homework or study. They also have chargers in the hub where you can do that, whenever you're free to do that.
All right, so here are some more specific ways to use your campus resources to save money. So there are amenities like the Student Recreation Center, the Academic Resource Center for tutoring, social events put on by ASPB, or maybe even going to the bell tower for things of that sort. There's also the Well, which is an on-campus resource as well. So I've used it before. You can get a free pedometer from them, or you can even link them to like your Apple like health app. So it's able to track your steps, and in exchange for your steps, you get rewards, such as like maybe a free t-shirt, free hats, etc. Next up is do not grocery shop when you're hungry. I know it's really easy to like eat with your eyes. So, just make sure that you at least go with a full stomach so you're not wandering off just buying things that seem like they're good. Another big on-campus resource is the R Pantry, which helps with students that are struggling with food insecurities. All you have to do is visit, well, at least right now, book a visit online and show up with your UCR ID and input your student ID number, and you're able to get free groceries from them, whatever they have to offer at the moment. Next is, like Michael mentioned, to shop at places with student discounts. There is also free printing at school, and you have $7 credit per quarter with the WEPA printing machines, and those are spread out throughout campus in Sprout Stats and the Watkins Computer Lab. So not all of you might be familiar with that yet, but you will be soon. Next is to maybe try to skip vacations and go for alternatives like volunteering or working a job, just so you can gain something a little bit more worthwhile for your resumes, at least in your first few years of college, which is always good. And I think the last option is to go to class. So like I had mentioned in the earlier slides, you're already paying for your tuition here at UCR, you might as well put it to good use.
Yeah, so now we'll move on into scholarships. So I know scholarships can definitely be a good way to, extend your budget, right, in terms of saving money. So definitely here are a few links you can look at, like the financial aid website. There's also scholarships directly just for CNAS students as well. There's also outside scholarships, that you might be interested in. So definitely take a look at those. And yeah.
All right, so that pretty much concludes our presentations. And so we do have a few last tips and advice to be a successful sophomore in CNAS. I think a big thing for me is not to stress out too much about, your career, where you're going. You're not supposed to have it all figured out by now. So just make sure to take the little steps like joining a club or an organization, getting into research just to play around and see like what you like and what works for you. And from there, then you're able to like build upon that the next few years of college. So again, feel free to ask us any questions if you have any. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I would say for the last tips and advice, definitely, like I mentioned earlier, staying organized was definitely key to being a successful sophomore student. As well as I know for organic chemistry that for a lot of you might seem a little daunting taking that class, but overall, if you take advantage of office hours, like I did, I went to office hours a lot during OChem, especially my first quarter of OChem, going to SI, taking advantage of that. SI has specific SIs for each individual lecture, so definitely make sure to attend that if you need additional help. Yeah, and just making sure you kind of know kind of what you want to do in your second year and what maybe set some goals for yourself that can definitely allow you to be successful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does anyone have any questions for us?